What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
If you're in Memphis, Tennessee, our next guest is somebody you've probably seen in the newspaper a couple of times. I got a chance to meet Marnie Byford, the COO of Supreme Staffing, when I spoke at the Executive Vision Conference that ASA housed, and was taken by just the way her mind works. And the more research I did on Supreme Staffing, Marnie, I realized we need to spend some time talking because she's been recognized as they call them the super women in business in Memphis by the Memphis Business Journal. She's been recognized as the top CEO of the year by the International Association of Top Professionals. And the list goes on and on. Most influential 2023 leader by Industry Era magazine. This is somebody who is making a mark. And not just on Memphis, because Supreme Staffing has now grown to literally being a regional force in helping companies align talent with mission. So, Marnie, I'm excited to have you today.
I'm excited to be here, Mike. Thank you so much.
Super, super. Well, I help people understand kind of not just where you are today, but I'm kind of curious about something. How did you get started in this wacky business that we call staffing?
Oh, I get that question a lot. You know, it's funny because my career wasn't originally this at all. Graduated from Mississippi State. I went into the psych field, went into the medical field, and started working with the at-risk youth adults, got into corrections, Department of Corrections, you name it. And then I started recruiting within that realm to try to help get people acclimated into the city. And my journey just started taking me from there. And I ended up working with a company here in Memphis, and I worked within a warehouse, and I fell in love with it. It was the wildest thing ever. I would never thought that would have been my niche. And I started seeing a mass disconnect. I know what the warehouse needed, but I saw what our staffing agencies were struggling with. And I had an opportunity and a job offer to get into the staffing side of the business and recruiting, and I jumped on it and I went from there. And so my journey has taken me down that path. I've taken the opportunity to study and learn both sides of the world and just bridging what needs to be done to make it work. I think education is key. That's my background, and that's what I've been doing to kind of get where we're going. And I'm ultimately where I'm at today.
Yeah, so that's why we're kindred spirits on the subject of education by growth. And I know that your company culture is really committed to the development of the talent internally, that your leadership team is composed 80% of people that you've sort of grown your own, and only 20% that you've done from of adding people to staff. But I'm curious about those 20 the 20%, because you've got this unique culture that you built out. And so when you think about going into the marketplace, when you've had a key role to actually bring somebody in, how do you vet someone to make sure they match up with your unique culture? Because it's a novel environment that you have.
Yeah, and it's not easy, to be very honest. Our executive recruiter goes through a lot of resumes. I think the biggest thing that we look for is being able to have the right attitude. We can teach the skills. Do we want them to have experience? Yes. But we want them to have the right attitude, because attitude and the sense of family unit is important where we're at in our company. And so we drive to make sure they have the right attitude, that they're hungry, that they're wanting to learn and grow within, because that's what we're driving to have is continue our growth internally. And then if there's a skill set that needs to be learned, we'll teach it, and go from there. So we ultimately drive to assess for the attitude and character that matches within.
Yeah, when you talk about hunger, that's a common sort of characteristic, I think, that a lot in the in leadership, especially something that's sales or sort of business expansion oriented environment. I'm kind of curious from what have you learned and what have y'all implement to help you understand and ferret out how hungry somebody is?
I think one of the things that's really important, and it kind of comes back from where I started coming out of college, is that uh, the behavior of a person. We can speak a great game and we can
Right.
sell ourselves very well, right?
Hmm.
But it's the behavior, the actions. I've always believed that actions speak louder than words. And I think when you really assess and evaluate a person's demeanor, their character, motion, movements, I think that helps us understand a little bit better of, their hunger, their motivation, their self drive. Sometimes we'll put them in a test moment within the company to see how they're really doing and see if they're really driving themselves based off what they say, right? Again, actions speak louder than word.
Yeah.
And I think that's been helpful.
So, what can you give us an example of what a test environment might be like?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we always want when we bring in anybody into our company is that they understand the whole business from A to Z. So that means the front desk all the way to the back end of everything. And so we'll give them a whole day. Starting at the front desk, we increment out their time, starting at the front desk, going from A, B, C, D, all the way through. And we really assess their behavior. We tell nobody anything. And then at the end of the day, we ask for feedback and evaluation. And that gives us the truest, honest, most purest answers that we can get that we need to properly evaluate.
That's interesting. So you actually have a candidate that you're considering for maybe a leadership role, and you'll
Mhm.
actually have them spend time at the front desk. They'll go into your training center. They will go into other operational aspects of things and actually take on part of a small part of some job just to see how, I guess, what you're looking for is flexibility and attitude and responsiveness and ability to think on their feet. I'm reading between the lines, but that's what it sounds like to me.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most critical things too, and I am big about this, is that we can be in the C-level, high leadership positions, but who are we to manage people if we're not understanding the front line? There are expert people, and I think it's important to be to being a manager. You need to understand the front line. You need to understand the experts that are seeing that every day, so you can properly manage them and be able to guide them in the right way, because you can sit behind a chair, you can sit behind a desk, you can sit behind a laptop, but can you truly give the right directive if you don't understand what's truly happening at
Hmm.
their level?
Yeah. Is that also part of your onboarding process that when you've hired somebody for a role, you'll actually go back through and have them go through the different roles
Yes.
from an
Yep.
onboarding to actually take it much deeper than you would in a one-day interview?
Yes. Yep. Yep. It's a full-blown training that they have to go through to be able to get to that final stop of what their position is going to be
Yeah.
for.
So that's interesting. You spend a lot of time preparing somebody to be an effective leader once you've invited them to be a part of the organization.
Yes. Yes. It's very important.
Yeah. So when you think in terms of your clients, because you help clients also hire, right? I mean, for
Mhm.
their roles, um,
Yeah.
is when you look and we can talk about this in general terms as opposed to somebody specific, but think of maybe a specific example. Um, are there sinkholes that you've seen with clients uh, fall into when it comes to the selection process, trying to hire right? Uh, that you go, man, I wish they hadn't done that. Anything come to mind that you've either observed that you would coach them to not do?
That we wish our customers wouldn't have done.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of, I'll ask you what you've dealt with, but I'm just trying to think of from a customer standpoint as you're asking, you're helping somebody in the hiring process. Uh, like I'll tell you one of mine is that they want to hire for a role, but they don't make the interviewing process a priority, and they squeeze the interview in between stuff, and they don't devote enough time, and so things get rushed, and it sends the wrong signal to candidate, and it doesn't allow the vetting process to be as thorough because it's been rushed. They haven't communicated.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things, and that's where I kind of go back to. I think it's so important to educate the operation side, the logistics, the warehousing, what have you, or whoever we're servicing to, of truly what the recruiting world is about. We're not growing people on trees. We
Hmm.
don't get to pluck and give, right? I think one of the things that we try to help them understand is we're doing the vetting for you. We're helping ease the process so you don't have to do so much of the legwork, but you can't have them lingering. People are wanting that job today, not tomorrow, not in 3 days, not in 4 days. We're going to lose them, right? And we need them to understand that we want them to be vetted. If we're saying we're offering a job, let's be ready for it, right? Let's not drag out the process. And I think the other thing is when we put them at the facilities and they actually are working the job, and I've been on the warehouse side, so I can speak to this, is that on the warehouse side, we fail to give the dedicated one-on-ones, training, understanding. We're more or less focused on a goal, a KPI, and we just need this person to get it done, do it the right way, and let's leave for the day. And when we're releasing people, we're not properly guiding them in the direction of helping them understand what they did wrong or what they did right, or giving them that simple thank you. And I think that's a lot of our challenge in the market is we're turning so many people versus giving our time and energy and expense of training them up to where they really need to be. Now
Yeah,
there's ownership on the employee side too, right? But
sure.
on the side that we own, I think there's tremendous growth for improvement there.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is there's two things that if I'm coaching one of my clients, I'm working for Supreme Staffing, I'm going to make sure that we talk about the feedback process of not feedback
Yep.
to us as a staffing solution, feedback to the candidate, or feedback to the person who's being onboarded, so that
Mhm.
it becomes a development as opposed to just a criticism. Uh,
Correct.
and then the second of all is appreciation. It has to do
Mhm.
with when somebody's coming in, is that are we appreciating the effort they're putting out? Are we appreciating the wins, the things that they're doing right? So they'll repeat those while we develop the things that still need to be increases from production or what have
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
you. Yeah, and especially from a time standpoint, what I'm hearing you say is that it seems to be a recurring theme on the conversations I've been having lately, the importance of slowing down. Uh,
Yes.
that slowing down is actually not a waste of time. Slowing down is an action. uh,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
as leaders we wrestle with. So I'm kind of curious. You've been with Supreme Staffing, and what's it been? Has it been 5 years now, or
5
5
years
years? Yeah.
working on my
Okay.
6th year. Mhm.
I'm kind of curious from in the past 5 years. I'm assuming that you've experienced a few things from day one to today. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. What's being CEO, COO of Supreme Staffing taught you? What have you learned in this process about yourself and about what effective leadership really should be?
I think about myself that delegation is okay. And that work-life balance is important. I am a hands-on person in everything I do. I believe in making sure I follow through on everything that I'm accountable to, because I always want to be responsive, excuse me, responsive and respectful to what is under me, and at the same time making sure my team gets what they need and they deserve as well. But I've learned that it's okay to delegate and train up those people to be where they need to be so they can properly grow as well. And
Mm,
it was never a lack of trust, but it was more of, just making sure that as a team we're a unit, and accountability is as a unit is much better than just one person.
yeah.
And then work life balance. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to rest your mind and breathe and know that, there is a tomorrow, we hope. And let's just get done what we can today and not hurt ourselves doing it. So we're burnt out on the next day. So we're not
Yeah.
burnt out on the next day.
You've approached the subject different from anybody that I've interviewed, and that's that we've talked about the importance of delegation, right? Because you got to lower your sort of your plate, offload your plate so you can be productive on the three most important things that you're going to do to drive things forward. There's different people approach from different directions. You've launched an interesting subject, and that delegation is actually a training tool. Uh,
Yes.
and sometimes we don't think along those lines.
Yep.
And so, from your perspective, Has there been anything you've dealt with that's been, you had to wrestle with delegating it versus keeping it for yourself?
I think it's just important taking that time out to train the right way, versus just, oh, here's the plate, figure it out on your own, right?
Mm.
I think it's just a matter of being patient in the delegation process and not rushing through it. I think that's the biggest thing that I've experienced. And not everybody is going to learn the same way that you learn, so you have to understand their learning techniques so they can get it the way that they can properly receive it.
Yeah. So with all the things that you have to do, because to give people a perspective, how large is Supreme staff now? How many offices you have and what y'all's reach?
So we are at 10 different locations, not all brick and mortars. We have about 6 brick and mortars, and then the rest are remote locations. So um, we're pretty large. We have 3 offices here now in Memphis. We're getting ready to open up our new headquarters the end of this month. So we're extremely excited about that. We have our first forklift training center. That's been a great success for us. So the trajectory has been pretty large. We started out with 1 office, and today here we are.
That's wild. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you think in terms of this reach or this expansion, my guess is you have a few things to do every day as the COO.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a
Uh,
few, not a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah. So if you got, this is a common subject, right? It has to do with leaders. You and I were kind of joking about my schedule's been like today. It's like this is actually my second uh, YouTube interview I've done today. I just got back from England this morning. A few minutes ago, I was in London. So,
Wow.
uh, and so,
Yeah.
and I get off of this when I do this thing at lunch. I've got a mastermind group I'll be hosting. We all, I mean, we were supposed to be busy. We were supposed to have a lot of things on our plate. What have you
Mhm.
learned that when it comes to being able to manage a full plate and be able to do that at the same time, be able to slow down enough to do the effective training and delegation that you need? To me, those things bang into each other.
Mhm. I think time management is very, 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 very important. Um, and not procrastinating. I think being able to align yourself accordingly, manage your schedule, stay consistent, stay structured, and time manage yourself well. Be able to be honest and transparent with yourself, as well as the people that may be involved in that scheduling time frame as well, and just properly time manage. I think that's the key. I think we get lost in not time managing ourselves the right way. And we feel like we just got to run around like chickens with our heads cut off and make sure we get everything done, and we're not doing it the right way all the
Mhm.
time. So I think it's just sometimes being able to also say, you know what, I'm not going to be able to finish it today. I'm going to have to move this one over till tomorrow, and being okay with that. I think
Ah,
that's important.
yeah. Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility, it's an honor.